Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here as we take a deep dive into the surprising, clinically proven science behind a plant you probably already have sitting right there in your kitchen pantry. Yep, we're talking about rosemary. Now, it's been all over social media lately, hailed as this sort of miracle cure for everything from daily stress to hair loss. But as focused learners, we want to look past all that hype and look directly at the data. So today we're going to unpack exactly how this botanical powerhouse operates on a microscopic, cellular level. And honestly, the findings are absolutely fascinating.
Okay, let's dive right into this because this is, without a doubt, the biggest viral claim surrounding this plant right now. You've probably seen all those before and after photos online, but you really have to ask, does rosemary actually regrow hair, or is this just another passing wellness fad? Well, to answer that, we have to look closely at the biological mechanisms of hair loss itself and how the specific chemical makeup of rosemary directly interacts with those mechanisms.
Section 1, more than a kitchen herb. So we have to kind of transition our understanding of rosemary from just a nice household spice to a serious botanical powerhouse. And to understand how it tackles hair loss, we need to understand the enemy here, DHT. In androgenetic alopecia, which is commonly known as pattern baldness, a hormone called DHT gradually shrinks your hair follicles. Think of your hair follicle like a little plant growing in a pot. DHT basically acts like this invisible force that is constantly shrinking that pot, giving the roots less and less room to survive until eventually the plant dies. But instead of letting that happen, rosemary extract steps in to block an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase, and that enzyme is exactly what converts testosterone into this pot-shrinking DHT. The specific compound doing all this heavy lifting is called 12-methoxycarnosic acid. At high concentrations, it actually inhibits this enzyme by up to 94.6%. So the really crucial takeaway here is that this completely natural extract is achieving enzyme suppression at a level that literally rivals standard pharmaceutical treatments.
Section 2, Science of Hair Growth. Now, what's really interesting about this is how it actually plays out in a real-world clinical setting. You see, researchers didn't just test rosemary oil on its own in a vacuum. They ran a really rigorous 100-patient head-to-head trial against minoxidil 2%, which is a leading regulated pharmaceutical treatment for hair loss. 50 patients used rosemary oil daily, and the other 50 used the minoxidil. This wasn't some subjective, how do you feel kind of evaluation. They were looking for hard, measurable, reproducible data to see if this natural extract could truly hold its own against a heavily engineered synthetic drug. And the magic number for that data? It's 6 months. At the 3-month mark, researchers actually noted no significant change in either group. And why is that? Well, because you simply cannot rush human biology. Your hair naturally goes through active, resting, and shedding phases. A follicle in the resting phase has to completely finish its cycle before it can start growing again. But right at that 6-month mark, both the rosemary group and the minoxidil group showed a significant, statistically equal increase in their hair count. The rosemary performed just as well as the pharmaceutical, but with one pretty awesome added benefit: significantly less scalp itching.
But hey, before you run out and just pour a bottle of essential oil on your head, let's look closely at the actual procedure. This is the scientifically supported, safe way to apply it. Essential oils are incredibly potent. If you apply pure rosemary oil directly to your skin, it can cause severe irritation or even chemical burns. You absolutely must dilute it to a 2 to 5% concentration in a carrier oil, something like jojoba or coconut oil. Then, you apply that mixture directly to the scalp. Massage it in for 2 to 3 minutes, which is great for boosting microcirculation, and leave it on for at least 2 hours to maximize absorption. Consistency, doing this every day, is the absolute key to matching those clinical results.
Section 3, Sniffing Away the Stress. So we've talked extensively about putting it on your scalp, but what actually happens when you just smell this powerful plant? Well, in a really fascinating study involving 22 healthy volunteers, researchers tested the physiological effects of sniffing rosemary and lavender essential oils for just 5 minutes. They then immediately tested the subject's saliva. The incredible outcome was that simply smelling the rosemary directly acted on the nervous system to significantly decrease the stress hormone cortisol, and at the exact same time, it increased the body's free radical scavenging activity. What this means is that just inhaling the aroma helps protect your body from oxidative stress, which is the kind of cellular damage closely linked to aging and inflammation. Literally just 5 minutes of breathing it in actively changes your body chemistry. Section 4, the chemical fingerprint. Let's move in and see how this all builds. We know what it does to the scalp, we know what it does to the nervous system, but if we zoom way in to a microscopic level, we can see exactly what this plant is actually made of. A gas chromatography flame ionization detection breakdown, or GCFID for short, provides us with the hard data here. This is basically how scientists create a molecular fingerprint of a wild variety of rosemary, specifically one called Rosmarinus officinalis prostratus. This particular chemotype was found to be incredibly rich in monoterpenes. In fact, nearly 60% of its entire makeup comes from these powerful volatile compounds, which completely validates all the wellness benefits we've been discussing with hard, measurable chemistry.
And if we break that fingerprint down even further, we see what is essentially a multi-pronged defense system. You've got alpha-pinene, which makes up over 43% of this specific oil, driving massive antioxidant and antibacterial activity. Then there's 1,8-cineol, fueling the pharmacological and physiological effects. Rosmarinic acid steps in to act as a powerful cellular bodyguard against oxidative damage. And of course, we already met our star player for hair loss, 12-methoxycarnosic acid, which tackles that DHT enzyme. Together, they fight inflammation, they balance the skin microbiome, and they stimulate circulation. It is just a brilliant symphony of active compounds.
Section 5. Sustainable Essential Oils. Now that we really understand the microscopic chemistry, we need to zoom all the way out to the global scale. You see, the massive demand for these potent essential oils creates a pretty massive agricultural issue, and that is waste. Essential oil yields from distillation are incredibly low. We're often talking just 0.5% to maybe 5% of the plant's total dry weight. That leaves behind an absolute mountain of discarded plant matter. And this brings us to a really vital concept called the circular economy, and specifically valorization. This is the scientific process of taking that discarded waste and reintegrating it back into production to create new, high-value biomolecules, rather than just letting it sit and rot in a landfill. To really understand the scale of this problem, just look at this number: 200,000 tons. That is the staggering amount of solid residue from essential oil extraction, including rosemary and other aromatic plants, that is discarded globally every single year. It is an enormous economic loss, basically representing mountains of potentially amazing, beneficial plant matter that is simply thrown in the trash. And this brilliantly illustrates what scientists are doing to fight back against this waste. Researchers recently decided to actually test that discarded rosemary residue. They used a statistical tool called response surface methodology to optimize the extraction of this waste using nothing but temperature and ethanol. And they found that by processing the waste at 70 degrees Celsius in an 80% ethanol solution for 60 minutes, they could extract absolutely incredible amounts of polyphenols, orthodiphenyls, and flavonoids. They literally took what was considered spent garbage and turned it into a treasure trove of valuable, highly active antioxidants that can now be used in pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, and even food preservation. Which leaves us with this final, really profound thought. We've seen today how a simple kitchen herb can rival pharmaceutical drugs for hair growth, lower your stress hormones in a matter of minutes, and provide this incredible wealth of complex chemical defenses. But if the discarded quote-unquote waste from extracting rosemary oil holds just as much valuable antioxidant power as the oil itself, what other hidden medical treasures are currently sitting right now in our global agricultural trash? It really makes you rethink how we view medicine, wellness, and our planetary sustainability. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, keep asking the big questions.